We have kids, we have children in Canada, kids, okay, who can't find jobs. Youth unemployment in Canada, 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds in the Greater Toronto Area is hovering around 20%.
If you're a Canadian struggling to find a job, if you're a temporary worker waiting years for answers, or if you're an international student wondering what your future in Canada really looks like, what you're about to hear inside the House of Commons explains why delays are exploding, why jobs feel harder to find, and why no one seems to give a clear answer. A minister is asked a simple question. Where are the cuts coming from? What follows is silence, conflicting numbers, and a debate that affects millions of lives in Canada right now. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand what's really happening behind the scenes.
Minister, where are you planning to get the 15% cuts? We're 8 months into this budget already haven't been spent. Where are you cutting? How many people are you letting go?
The people...
There's a silence there, and my 5 minutes are rapidly disappearing.
So in early 2025, IRCC already recalibrated a large number of its staffing back in February 2025. And the reason it did that at the time was because the levels plan was supposed to be 500 for permanent residency, and it went down to 395. So there was 3,300 positions that were already taken out. So now the number is...
Well, you're asking us for money today, Minister, with all due respect. The budget was presented to us just on November 4th, and that budget, the very first line on page 311, which deals with citizenship and immigration, says that you are working towards the 15%. Here's really what I'm trying to get at. It's like you're faced with having to cut 15%, but we're not seeing services being afforded to people that are expecting some service. Mrs. Zahid mentioned the Hong Kong Pathway Program. Last Saturday, I met at the Hong Kong Community Center with hundreds of people specifically on the Hong Kong Pathway subject. People that were signed an agreement in effect with the federal government saying if they did this, they would have a pathway to permanent residency. They're looking at delays, Minister, of up to 10 years. So where are you cutting at? Are we going to see services cut as well? These backlogs are getting further and further and further. So let me ask you this. What was the historic high of non-permanent residents as a percentage of the overall population? Do you know?
Where are the cuts really coming from? This is the central question of the entire House of Commons exchange and the starting point for everything that follows. The question being asked in Parliament sounds simple, but the consequences are massive. When the government announces a 15% budget cut to IRCC, it doesn't just affect spreadsheets. It affects processing times, families, workers, and employers across Canada. The frustration here comes from the lack of a straight answer. Canadians and applicants want to know exactly what is being cut and who will feel it first. Key points mentioned below. 1. 15% budget cut already written into the federal budget. 2. No clear breakdown of how the cuts will be applied. 3. Immigration services already under heavy strain. What a 15% cut actually means in real life. A 15% cut doesn't mean paperwork magically becomes more efficient. In government departments, cuts usually hit people first: officers, analysts, and support staff. When fewer officers are available, files move slower, emails go unanswered, and timelines stretch from months into years. Even if demand stays the same or drops slightly, the system still struggles because capacity has already been reduced. Key points mentioned below. 1. Fewer officers handling the same volume of files. 2. Slower decision-making. 3. Longer wait times across all application types. Confirmed staff reductions inside IRCC. The minister confirms that IRCC already recalibrated its staffing earlier in 2025. This wasn't a future plan. It already happened. Thousands of positions were removed after permanent resident targets were lowered. That means the system entered the year with fewer people processing applications before new budget pressures even begin. Key points mentioned below. 1. Approximately 3,300 positions already removed. 2. Cuts linked to reduced PR targets. 3. Reduced capacity already baked into the system. Confirmed staff reductions inside IRCC. Viewers are confused why delays persist even when numbers are controlled. The government often says it is controlling immigration numbers, but backlog growth depends more on processing speed than intake alone. When staff numbers drop faster than applications, the backlog grows silently. This creates a situation where new promises are made, while old applications continue piling up with no clear end in sight. Key points mentioned below. 1. Backlogs driven by processing capacity, not just intake. 2. Old files remain unresolved. 3. Applicants feel forgotten. Pathway programs and the trust gap. Trust is the foundation of immigration programs. Programs like the Hong Kong pathway were introduced with clear expectations. People were told that if they met specific conditions, a permanent residency pathway would be available. Many uprooted their lives based on those assurances. Now they are being told processing could take close to a decade, leaving them stuck in temporary status with no stability. Key points mentioned below. 1. Clear promises were made. 2. Long delays now replacing certainty. 3. Trust between applicants and government weakening.
So let me answer your
my
question.
question, Minister,
There's a
well-
number of factors when we consider our budget. There will
No,
be no
I-
cuts to servicing frontline.
I understand. I'd like to know if you know if you can share with us what the historic high of non-permanent residents in the country is as a percentage of population.
7.6%.
Yes. Well, there was actually 7.4%
5.9.
as of Stats Canada's report on October the 1st, 2024. Do you know what it was as of just this past summer?
The number that we have here for the third quarter of 2025, 7.26.
Okay. Now, it was just 2.5%, Minister, for 4 years ago.
Sorry?
It was just, in 2022, it was 2.5%. Today, you're looking at 7.1%.
So you
There's
must
no
be,
amount
you're
of
using
spin.
different stats.
There's no, I'm talking like this is the huge number of people that your government has led into the country. There's no amount of spin that will hide the volume of people that were led here. We warned the Liberals, for example, to abolish the TFW program, which you have chosen not to do so. It appears to Canadians that the IRCC, your department, has become the Human Resources Department for Tim Hortons.
The numbers war, who is telling the truth? Conflicting numbers confuse the public and weaken trust in institutions. This moment in Parliament turns into a battle over statistics. One side cites government numbers, the other references Stats Canada. To most Canadians, the exact decimal doesn't matter. What matters is why official figures don't seem to line up. When people hear different numbers from elected officials, it creates doubt and frustration, especially when policies affect housing, jobs, and services. Key points mentioned below. 1. Conflicting statistics presented publicly. 2. Lack of unified messaging. 3. Public confidence takes a hit. From 2.5% to over 7%. How fast did Canada change? Rapid growth without preparation overwhelms systems. Just a few years ago, non-permanent residents made up a much smaller share of Canada's population. Today, that number has nearly tripled. The concern isn't immigration itself. It's how quickly the change happened. Systems like housing, healthcare, and job markets were never designed to absorb that level of growth in such a short time. Key points mentioned below. 1. Sharp population growth in a short period. 2. Infrastructure not scaled fast enough. 3. Pressure felt nationwide. When statistics don't match real life. Rapid viewers trust personal experience more than charts. Even when officials say numbers are stabilizing or declining, many Canadians don't feel relief. Rents are high, entry-level jobs are harder to get, and service wait times remain long. This gap between what people hear and what they experience fuels anger and skepticism. Key points mentioned below. 1. Housing affordability crisis. 2. Job competition increasing. 3. Services stretched thin. Is IRCC serving Canadians or corporations? This question strikes at the heart of public resentment. The criticism of the temporary foreign worker program isn't aimed at workers. It's aimed at how the system is used. When large employers rely heavily on temporary labor, while young Canadians struggle to find work, people begin to question who the system truly serves. Key points mentioned below. 1. Youth unemployment concerns. 2. Employer reliance on temporary labor. 3. Calls for reform growing louder.
We have kids, we have children in Canada, kids, okay, who can't find jobs. Youth unemployment in Canada, 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds in the Greater Toronto Area is hovering around 20%. And they're trying to find jobs, and you have temporary foreign workers and international students who really should not be working and taking their jobs, their jobs.
From January to September 2025, we have 150,220 fewer students that have arrived, and 158,660 fewer workers that have arrived than last year. So the numbers is going down, asylum numbers are going down. I think that's probably what hurts, is the fact that we are controlling our immigration numbers, we are controlling the non-permanent residents, but
if you were in that room last Saturday with hundreds of people, okay, and I can tell you that 98% of them are frustrated because they did everything right and they're not getting service at the other end. They're not seeing a pathway to go on with their lives here in Canada.
Thank you, Mr. Menegakis. Thank you, Minister Diab.
Youth unemployment and rising frustration. This is the most relatable moment for Canadian families. High youth unemployment creates anxiety among parents and young adults. When local jobs feel unreachable, resentment grows, regardless of policy intentions. Key points mentioned below. 1. 20% youth unemployment in GTA areas. 2. Entry-level barriers. 3. Long-term economic risk. Government response on declining intake shows the other side of the argument. The minister points to fewer students, fewer workers, and fewer asylum seekers arriving. However, reduced intake doesn't automatically fix existing backlogs. Key points mentioned below. 1. Intake numbers down. 2. Backlogs still high. 3. Processing delays remain. The human cost of backlogs. Turn statistics into real lives. People who followed every rule are stuck waiting, unable to plan careers, families, or futures. For many, the delay feels like a dead end. Key points mentioned below. 1. Mental stress. 2. Financial uncertainty. 3. Trust erosion. What we saw today in the House of Commons isn't just political debate, it's a real warning sign. Budget cuts, staff reductions, and growing backlogs are affecting Canadians trying to find work and temporary foreign workers waiting for answers about their future. When numbers don't match reality and clear answers are missing, trust starts to break down, and everyday people pay the price. If you're a Canadian worried about jobs, a temporary foreign worker stuck in delays, or someone planning to build a future in Canada, these decisions directly affect you. This channel exists to break down complex government debates into clear, honest explanations without politics or spin. We focus on what policies actually mean for real people, real timelines, and real opportunities. Subscribe to the channel so you stay informed. Understand the changes before they happen, and don't get caught off guard by decisions made in Parliament.